The Galactic Council had made a grave mistake. They thought humanity would break when they executed our captured soldiers, men and women who had fought valiantly against impossible odds. They believed we would cower, that our spirit would be crushed beneath their boot. They were wrong. The moment footage of the mass execution reached Earth, a single unanimous message was sent across all frequencies, translated into every known language in the galaxy. Earth declares total war. The Council underestimated us. They always had. They believed their vast fleets and millennia of warfare had made them invincible. But we were something they had never faced before, an enemy that learned, adapted, and refused to surrender. The first wave was swift and brutal. The Martian dreadnought Indomitable led the charge, emerging from FTL right in the heart of the Council's main fleet. Plasma shields flared and failed as human weapons, designed for total annihilation, shredded their warships. No warnings. No negotiations. Only retribution. From the colonies of Titan to the shipyards of Ganymede, humanity mobilized like never before. Factories that once built civilian craft now turned out warships at an industrial scale. AI-driven war machines executed precise orbital bombardments, turning enemy strongholds into glowing craters. Shock troopers landed on Council worlds, fighting with a ferocity unseen in galactic history. The Council's warlords tried to push back, deploying their best forces against us. It didn't matter. For every human soldier lost, we took 10 of theirs. For every city they held, we burned another of theirs to the ground. Every atrocity they had committed against us was repaid 100-fold. The war lasted 5 years. By the end of it, the Galactic Council no longer existed. Its proud ruling species, the so-called untouchables of the universe, were now refugees or corpses. The ones who ordered the executions were found and tried in the ruins of their once glorious capital world. The verdict? Death. As the last council leader fell to the executioner's blade, Earth sent one final message to the remnants of the galaxy. Never again. Chapter 1: The Massacre. The hollow feeds flickered in the dimly lit war chamber of the United Earth Directorate. Grim-faced generals, diplomats, and intelligence officers sat in cold silence as the transmission played again. "This cannot be real," whispered Admiral Lasker, his knuckles white as he gripped the edge of the long conference table. But it was real. The Galactic Council, the supposed bastion of order in the cosmos, had just executed over 5,000 human prisoners of war. And they had broadcast it live across the known galaxy. The footage was brutal. Rows of bound and kneeling soldiers, diplomats, and civilians, Earth's best and brightest, were summarily gunned down by alien soldiers, their lifeless bodies collapsing into pools of crimson. The executioner, a high-ranking official of the Tazkari Dominion, had turned to the camera and spat in heavily accented English. "Humanity must learn its place. This is but a warning." General Elena Kovac, Supreme Commander of Earth's Defense Forces, stood abruptly, her chair screeching against the steel floor. A warning? No, this was a declaration. A declaration that they believe us to be weak. That they can exterminate us without consequence. President Alexander Monroe, his aging face lined with grief and rage, nodded solemnly. Then we must show them they are wrong. The Galactic Council had been at odds with humanity since the day Earth made first contact. The Council had always seen humanity as an upstart race, dangerously aggressive and unpredictable. Yet, despite countless diplomatic efforts, humanity had always been treated as second class, denied full membership and subjected to sanctions. When war inevitably broke out between Earth and the Tazkari Dominion, a major power in the Council, it had been bloody, but Earth had held its own. Till now. The massacre of human prisoners changed everything. "Prepare the war protocols," President Monroe said, his voice ironclad. "They wanted a warning? Then we'll give them one they'll never forget." A murmur of assent rippled through the room. Humanity had always been underestimated. The Galactic Council had just made the greatest mistake in their history. They had given Earth a reason to go to war. Chapter 2: Firestorm. The war machine of Earth rumbled to life. Factories shifted into overdrive, starships were pressed into service, and the call for war echoed across every colony. This was not just a war, it was vengeance. In the Seoul Defense Command Center, Lieutenant General Isaac Stroud analyzed the strategic map displayed in the air before him. Fleets of Earth's most advanced warships were already assembling near Jupiter's moons, waiting for the final order. "We cannot win this through conventional means," said Rear Admiral Hassan Patel. "The Council controls thousands of star systems. Their military is vast. If we go into a prolonged engagement, we will lose." General Kovac stepped forward. "Then we don't fight a prolonged engagement. We strike fast, hard, and without mercy. The Galactic Council is vast, but its heart is weak. They have grown complacent. We must shatter them before they can mobilize fully." President Monroe entered the room, a look of steely determination on his face. "You have my full authorization. We will not simply fight. We will annihilate those who dared murder our people." Earth's fleets moved swiftly. The first targets were logistical hubs, communication relays, and supply depots. The attacks were precise, devastating, and relentless. The Council had expected an Earth cowed into submission. Instead, they had awakened a beast. The first major battle erupted over the contested world of Varnus IV. The Galactic Council had stationed a fleet there, believing it would serve as a deterrent. Instead, Earth's forces descended upon it like a hurricane. The battle was over in 6 hours. Humanity had struck the first blow. But the war had only just begun. Chapter 3: The Wrath of Earth. The declaration of all-out war by Earth was not just a response. It was a reckoning. Humanity, long underestimated by the Galactic Council, now prepared for the greatest military campaign in its history. Admiral Vasquez stood aboard the UNS Retribution, Earth's most advanced dreadnought. It was a behemoth of war, armed with railguns capable of accelerating depleted uranium slugs to near-light speed, plasma lances capable of melting through starship hulls, and the newest quantum-coordinated AI overseeing battlefield logistics. The ship's bridge was filled with the hum of war preparations, officers moving in disciplined synchronization. "Status report," Vasquez commanded. "Admiral, the 3rd, 5th, and 7th fleets are in final position. Orbital bombardment solutions for the Council worlds have been calculated," replied Captain Lien Cho, her face hardened by years of conflict. The war had begun in blood, and humanity was about to return the favor tenfold. The Galactic Council, arrogant in their power, had executed thousands of human prisoners in a display of superiority. What they failed to understand was that humanity never forgot and never forgave. The War Council had drawn up Operation Fury's Anvil, a systematic campaign to break the Galactic Council's military, cripple their economies, and make them regret the day they dared spill human blood. "Orders confirmed," Vasquez said. "Commence the assault." Across the void, Earth's forces struck. The first target was the Ralvec homeworld, a species that had stood by idly as humanity's prisoners were slaughtered. Stealth cruisers penetrated planetary defenses and unleashed pinpoint orbital strikes, taking out power grids and military installations with precision. Then came the ground forces, Earth's elite marine divisions, augmented with exoskeletons and neural-linked combat drones. The Ralvec resistance crumbled in days. Their leaders begged for mercy. None was given. One by one, the allied races of the Council fell. The once dominant alliance that had lorded over the stars was shattered. Humanity was now in control of their fate, and they would ensure that no species would ever dare threaten them again. Chapter 4: The Final Judgment. The war had raged for months. Council forces were broken, their fleets scattered. Humanity had seized the initiative and never relinquished it. Now the final confrontation loomed. Xirinth Prime, the capital world of the Galactic Council. The Council's last remnants had fortified the planet, surrounding it with a planetary shield and the largest fleet they could muster. But it would not be enough. Aboard the Retribution, Admiral Vasquez addressed the troops. "This is the endgame. The Council thought us weak. They thought us fragile. They thought wrong. Today we take their throne and burn it to the ground. No more negotiations. No more mercy. They will pay for what they did to our people." Cheers erupted across the command deck. Earth's fleet engaged. The sky above Xirinth Prime became a battlefield of flashing railgun rounds, exploding capital ships and blinding beams of energy. Despite their defenses, the Council forces were outmatched. Humanity had spent centuries perfecting war, and their technological advancements had turned them into an unstoppable force. As the planetary shield collapsed, drop pods rained down. Elite strike teams infiltrated the Council's grand chambers. Within hours, humanity's soldiers stood over the captured Council leaders, their arrogance now replaced with fear. Admiral Vasquez stepped forward, looking into the eyes of the Council's Supreme Chancellor. "We offered you peace," Vasquez said coldly. "You chose war." The Chancellor trembled. We surrender." Vasquez's expression remained unmoved. "Not accepted." A single shot rang out. The war was over. The age of human dominance had begun. Chapter 5. Wrath of Terra. The fleet hung in high orbit over the smoldering wreckage of what was once a Galactic Council military outpost. Earth's response to the massacre of its captured soldiers had been swift and devastating. Admiral Leon Graves stood at the command deck of the UNS Retribution, watching as the wreckage of alien ships floated lifelessly in the void. "Status report," he ordered, his voice calm but edged with fury. "All Council resistance neutralized in this sector, sir," came the reply from Commander Valerie Shun. "We've secured the station and extracted all intelligence logs. No survivors." Admiral Graves exhaled slowly. The Council had made a fatal mistake. The execution of human prisoners had unified Earth like never before. Political squabbles, national rivalries, all had been set aside in favor of a single unrelenting objective: vengeance. The Galactic Council had expected Earth to protest, to threaten, perhaps even to embargo trade routes. They had not expected Earth's fleets to descend upon them with the unrelenting fury of a species that had spent millennia perfecting the art of war. "What do the intelligence logs say?" Graves asked. "Council forces are rallying at the Trelvax nexus. They assume we'll be slow to react," Commander Shun said with a smirk. "They don't know that the assault fleet is already en route." Graves nodded approvingly. "Then let's remind them what a mistake it was to underestimate us." Chapter 6. The storm breaks. The Council's defense lines at Trelvax Nexus were formidable. Dozens of warships, orbital defense platforms and automated turrets formed an iron wall between Earth's forces and the key hyperspace lanes leading deeper into Council territory. Admiral Zoklin of the Galactic Council observed the approaching human fleet from the bridge of the Imperator's Will, a dreadnought bristling with weapons. He was one of the few Council leaders who had opposed the execution of the human prisoners, warning that it would provoke something beyond simple retaliation. And now, watching the relentless march of Earth's armada, he knew he had been right. "Admiral, the humans have entered weapons range," a bridge officer announced, voice tense. "All batteries fire at will." Zoklin barked. A storm of plasma, railgun slugs, and missile barrages erupted from the Council fleet. The human vessels took evasive maneuvers, but not before a few were vaporized in the opening salvo. Then Earth struck back. Human railguns fired with pinpoint precision, punching through Council hulls like paper. Swarms of guided missiles, equipped with AI-assisted targeting, wove through the battlefield and found their marks. The Imperator's Will shook as multiple impacts rocked its shields. "Their weapons are tearing through our armor," an officer cried in panic. "Stay calm. Redirect all power to forward shields and return fire," Zoklin commanded, but even as he did, he knew it was futile. Aboard the Retribution, Admiral Graves watched the battlefield unfold. The Council had numbers, but Earth had strategy. Years of war simulations, real combat experience and technological advancements had culminated in this moment. "Signal the boarding teams," Graves ordered. "We're taking the Imperator's Will intact." In the final moments of the battle, human Marines stormed the Council flagship. Elite troops, clad in exo-armor, cut through defenders like a hot knife through butter. When they finally reached the bridge, Admiral Zoklin stood, defeated. "We never should have killed your people," he said, voice heavy with regret. "No," replied Commander Shun, raising her weapon. "You shouldn't have." A single shot ended him. The war had only just begun. Chapter 7. The Fury of Earth. The declaration of all-out war by Earth sent shockwaves through the Galactic Council. What was once considered a minor species had suddenly become the most feared force in the galaxy. Humanity, long underestimated, had chosen annihilation over submission. Admiral Jonas Mercer stood aboard the flagship Indomitable, staring at the holographic display of the Galactic Council fleet. The enemy ships outnumbered Earth's by nearly 10-1, yet Mercer felt nothing but grim determination. "Let them come," he muttered, his voice carrying across the bridge. A transmission crackled through. High Admiral Zior of the Galactic Council's armada appeared on screen, his reptilian features twisted in a mocking sneer. "Humans, you are but dust in the wind. surrender, and perhaps we shall be merciful." Mercer smiled coldly. "You made a mistake here. You didn't just kill our soldiers. You made us angry." The transmission cut as Earth's fleet surged forward, unleashing a coordinated barrage that shattered the vanguard of the enemy fleet. What the Council hadn't accounted for was humanity's ingenuity, adaptive AI systems, electronic warfare, and the sheer unpredictability of human tactics. Council ships faltered under the assault, their shields collapsing under relentless kinetic bombardment. On the surface of the Council world Kvath Prime, elite human strike teams launched simultaneous attacks on key military installations. Captain Dana Cade led her unit through the fortified corridors of a Council prison, gunning down guards as they moved. The mission was clear: rescue any surviving human prisoners and make the Council pay for their atrocities. They found them, malnourished, tortured, barely alive. Rage burned in Cade's chest as she whispered into her comms, "Command, we found them. But we're also burning this place to the ground." Explosions rocked the prison as human forces set charges, reducing the torture chambers to rubble. The Council had drawn first blood, but now humanity was making them bleed for every crime. Chapter 8. The Battle for Kvath Prime. The skies above Kvath Prime burned. Human dreadnoughts unleashed relentless orbital bombardments, reducing planetary defenses to twisted wreckage. The Council, once so sure of its dominance, found itself utterly unprepared for the brutality and precision of humanity's response. General Marcus Steele led the ground assault, deploying mechanized units and shock troops onto the devastated surface. "We take no prisoners," he growled, his armor reflecting the fires of battle. They didn't. Neither do we. The Council's forces, despite their numbers, were fractured. Panic set in as human squads moved with ruthless efficiency, eliminating strongholds and cutting off retreat paths. The Council's High Chancellor Vale Talk watched in horror as his palace was surrounded. "We were gods," he screamed. "How did this happen?" Human soldiers breached the palace, dragging Vale Talk before General Steele. The Chancellor trembled as Steele leveled his sidearm. "For every human life you snuffed out, we will take 100 of yours," Steele declared. A single shot ended the Chancellor's reign. Across the galaxy, other species watched in stunned silence. The message was clear: humanity was not to be trifled with. The Council had thought they were exterminating an inconvenience. Instead, they had awakened a monster. As the smoke cleared over Kvath Prime, a new era had begun, one where humanity no longer fought for survival. Now they fought for vengeance, and the galaxy would never be the same. Chapter 9. The Inferno begins. Admiral Cole stood aboard the UNSF Retribution, staring at the holographic projection of the battlefield. Humanity's response to the Galactic Council's massacre of prisoners had been swift and brutal. The fleet was mobilized, Earth's war machine awakened, and a storm of vengeance was now barreling toward the heart of the enemy's empire. "Status on the primary fleet?" Cole asked, his voice calm but laced with steel. "All ships are in formation," Captain Valera reported. "Phase 1 is ready. We'll be engaging the forward defenses of the Council's mid-rim worlds within the hour." The battle plan was precise, a masterstroke of strategy. Humanity had learned much from centuries of war. Every engagement, every betrayal, every setback had forged them into the deadliest force the galaxy had ever seen. And now it was time to demonstrate that terrifying efficiency. The Battle of Vioris Prime. The Council's defenses around Vioris Prime were formidable, an array of heavily armed orbital platforms supported by a vast fleet. They thought themselves invincible. They were wrong. The first wave of human warships exited FTL with pinpoint accuracy, appearing less than 500 kilometers from the outermost defensive stations. The Retribution led the charge, its primary cannons firing before the enemy even had time to react. Missiles, railgun slugs, and directed energy beams slashed through the void, striking the enemy's shields and hulls with unrelenting fury. The orbital platforms returned fire, but the humans had planned for this. Coordinated ECM warfare and pinpoint torpedo strikes shattered the defensive grid within minutes. Aboard the bridge of the Iron Fist, General Thorne grinned. "Time for the ground assault. Deploy the Marines." Humanity had no mercy left to give. Drop pods screamed through the atmosphere, slamming into the planet's surface, releasing thousands of heavily armored supersoldiers. The Galactic Council's ground forces crumbled under the relentless onslaught. Within a day Vioris Prime had fallen. Humanity's warpath had begun. Chapter 10, The Wrath of Earth. Word of the battle spread through the Galactic Council like wildfire. Fear gripped their leaders as they realized the humans weren't just fighting back. They were eradicating anything in their path. At the Council's high chamber, panic ruled the room. "They've taken Vioris Prime in less than a day," an Avarian ambassador squawked, his feathers ruffling in fear. "Our forces were annihilated. This is impossible. This is humanity," Supreme Chancellor Drelzon muttered. "And we've made them angry." The Siege of Zethos. The Council attempted to rally their fleets at Zethos, one of their core worlds. It was a desperate stand, throwing everything they had into a last-ditch effort to slow humanity's advance. The system was fortified, shielded by an armada of warships from across the Council's member species. Humanity came anyway. The attack began with cyber warfare, disabling planetary defenses and scrambling enemy communications. Seconds later, kinetic strikes from human dreadnoughts obliterated orbital stations and shattered enemy formations. Phase 2, Admiral Cole ordered. "Bring in the Titans." The Titan-class warships were humanity's newest and deadliest creations, colossal vessels capable of leveling entire continents from orbit. They fired, their bombardments hammering Zethos without restraint. Cities burned, oceans boiled, and Council forces were slaughtered in droves. Ground forces landed soon after. They offered no quarter. The Galactic Council had sentenced human prisoners to death. Now humanity had declared war on their entire species. Zethos fell in 2 days. The war was no longer about survival. It was about retribution. And humanity would not stop until the Galactic Council was nothing more than ashes and memories. Chapter 11, The Fires of Vengeance. The bridge of the UNSF Retribution was eerily silent as Admiral James Calloway stared at the incoming tactical reports. The Galactic Council had crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. They had butchered human prisoners, executing them like livestock, believing it would break Earth's spirit. Instead, it had ignited a firestorm. "Status on the fleet?" Calloway asked, his voice a low growl. "All battle groups report ready, sir," replied Captain Alyssa Grant, his second-in-command. "Task Force Hammer is in position on the Galactic west flank, while Task Force Anvil holds formation near the Sirius system. The Saturn Defense Fleet is reporting operational readiness and is awaiting orders." "Good. The time for diplomacy is over. We strike at the heart of their empire." Calloway turned toward the massive holographic display, a rotating image of the Galactic Council's homeworld, Zenthari Prime, spinning in place. "Set the course. We burn their throne world to the ground." The bridge crew tensed. It was one thing to engage in conventional warfare, but this was something else entirely: extermination. Yet after the horrors visited upon human prisoners, no one was voicing a word of restraint. "Sir, we are detecting increased fleet movements from the Council," an officer reported. "They are deploying defensive forces in a desperation attempt to hold Zenthari Prime." Calloway smirked. "They know what's coming. Let's make sure their nightmares come true. All ships, initiate the jump." With a flash of light, the human fleet tore through space, heading for vengeance. Chapter 12, The Battle of Zenthari Prime. The moment the UNSF fleet emerged from hyperspace, Zenthari Prime's defense forces scrambled. Countless energy signatures flared to life as planetary shields powered up, orbital defense stations armed their weapons, and vast fleets of warships moved to intercept. "Admiral, enemy forces are moving in a three-pronged formation," Captain Grant relayed. "They are deploying dreadnoughts at the center, flanked by heavy cruisers and destroyers. Their planetary defenses are reinforced by a network of automated battle stations." Calloway took a deep breath, considering his options. "Deploy the Behemoth-class dreadnoughts at the front. We'll break their center with overwhelming firepower and drive a wedge straight through their core. The battle groups will follow, smashing their flanks and cutting off retreat. Task Force Hammer will handle the orbital defenses, while Anvil secures landing zones." "Acknowledged, sir." Grant barked, transmitting the orders. The first salvos were unleashed. Beams of energy and kinetic rounds cut through the void, detonating upon impact with warships and shields alike. Human railguns firing tungsten slugs at relativistic speeds, punched through the Council's vessels like paper. Explosions flared in the distance as enemy ships disintegrated. Enemy dreadnoughts firing, a tactical officer warned. A moment later, searing beams of energy lanced through the human fleet, annihilating 3 destroyers and damaging a heavy cruiser. But the humans had anticipated this. Retribution's forward shield generators absorbed the worst of the attack, dispersing the energy harmlessly into space. "Return fire with main batteries," Calway ordered. The colossal guns of the human dreadnoughts roared, launching projectiles the size of buildings at the enemy's largest ships. Council dreadnoughts shattered under the impact, their debris scattering into the darkness. With the enemy's center breaking, human ground forces initiated their descent. Drop pods and assault carriers roared into Zenthari Prime's atmosphere, delivering battalions of armored soldiers, tanks, and mechs into the heart of the alien capital. The ground war had begun. From the wreckage of an orbital station, High Marshal Vorkin of the Galactic Council watched in horror as the once mighty defenders of his world fell before the unrelenting storm that was humanity. He turned to his second-in-command. "We must surrender." The alien officer shook his head. "They will show no mercy. We doomed ourselves the moment we spilled human blood." As the first human battle mechs touched down on the charred soil of Zenthari Prime, Admiral Calway's final orders echoed through the fleet. "No quarter. Show them what it means to fear humanity." Chapter 13. The Fires of Retaliation. The bridge of the UNS Valkyrie hummed with activity as Admiral Helena Voss stood at the center, her piercing gaze fixed on the holographic representation of the Galactic Council's stronghold. It was a behemoth of a station orbiting a dying red giant, a symbol of their arrogance and perceived invulnerability. "All fleet captains confirm strike readiness," she ordered. One by one, confirmations echoed through the comms. Humanity had mustered everything: carriers, dreadnoughts, and cutting-edge destroyers brimming with newly developed rail cannons and energy weapons. The massacre of human prisoners had galvanized Earth, turning its war effort from desperate resistance into a campaign of absolute annihilation. The Galactic Council's crime had not only united Earth's disparate factions but had led to an unprecedented surge in technological advancement. In mere months, human engineers had accelerated decades of research, driven by the collective rage of an entire species. Voss turned to her tactical officer. "Status on enemy fleet movements?" "They're holding defensive positions around the station, Admiral. Standard formation, likely underestimating our new capabilities." Voss smirked. "Then let's educate them. Commence bombardment." The first salvo from the fleet was a testament to human ingenuity. Experimental Gauss cannons, delivering projectiles at near-light speed, shredded enemy hulls before their shields could even react. Plasma lances followed, slicing through Council warships like molten knives through paper. "Direct hits," Lieutenant Ramirez cheered. "3 Council dreadnoughts down. Launch the boarding teams," Voss ordered. "We take that station today." Thousands of Marines surged forward in drop pods, each one filled with warriors burning for revenge. Humanity would not be satisfied with mere destruction. There was a message to be sent. Chapter 14. No Mercy, No Surrender. Sergeant Dorian Kane slammed into the deck of the Council station, his boots absorbing the impact as his squad spread out behind him. The corridors ahead flickered under emergency lighting, signs of the chaos unfolding. Enemy resistance was sporadic at best. The Council had never prepared for a full-on human boarding assault. "We push forward. Take no prisoners," Kane barked. The squad advanced, sweeping through hallways lined with the bodies of fallen Council soldiers. Many of them had never even drawn their weapons before being cut down. The sheer ferocity of the human strike force overwhelmed what little resistance remained. Reaching the station's command center, Kane and his Marines planted breach charges on the reinforced doors. With a deafening explosion, the path was opened, revealing a room filled with Council dignitaries and officers, cowering behind overturned furniture. A Zalari, a member of the Council's ruling species, raised trembling hands. "We surrender. Please we." Kane shot him mid-sentence. "You surrendered when you slaughtered our prisoners," he growled. "No mercy." The room became a slaughterhouse. No member of the Galactic Council would leave alive. Back on the Valkyrie, Admiral Voss received the confirmation. The station was secure. The last stronghold of the council had fallen. Humanity's message had been delivered, written in blood and fire. Earth had declared all-out war, and there would be no peace until the Galactic Council was nothing but ashes.